It was supposed to be just another flight for Lisa Johnson. Another step in her busy but successful life. She had worked hard for this moment, and the thought of finally treating herself to a first-class experience brought a small smile to her face as she wheeled her suitcase toward the gate. Lisa wasn't one to flaunt her success. She didn't wear flashy jewelry or designer logos plastered across her outfit. Instead, she had opted for a simple but elegant blouse and tailored pants that reflected her personality, confident, understated, yet undeniably stylish. Her dark curls framed her face, and her warm smile had a way of lighting up even the dullest surroundings. As she approached the first-class boarding gate, she felt a wave of satisfaction. This wasn't just about comfort, it was about recognizing how far she had come. Years of long nights, setbacks, and tireless determination had paved the way for this moment. She clutched her boarding pass in her hand, feeling the smooth texture of the paper between her fingers. But as she neared the gate, a subtle tension began to creep into the air. The gate agent, a middle-aged woman with sharp features and a stiff uniform, glanced up. Her eyes swept over Lisa quickly, but then paused. The glance became a stare, a look that lingered just a second too long. Lisa noticed it immediately. She had seen that look before, though she wished she hadn't. It was a look that questioned her. Not her ticket, not her boarding group, but her presence in this space. Lisa stepped forward confidently and handed over her ticket. "Good morning," she said with a polite nod. The agent barely returned her greeting. Instead, she frowned as she scanned the boarding pass. Her expression turned skeptical, and her tone became cold. "Ma'am," the agent began, her voice low and deliberate. "I think you're in the wrong line." For a moment, Lisa thought she had misheard. She blinked, her polite smile faltering. "I'm sorry," she asked, her voice calm but with an edge of confusion. "This line is for first-class passengers," the agent clarified, as if Lisa hadn't understood. Her words were sharp and carried an air of finality. Lisa felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She glanced down at her boarding pass, even though she knew exactly what it said. Bold, black letters confirmed her first-class status. She had double-checked it earlier, excited about the experience ahead. "Yes, I know," Lisa replied, her voice steady but firmer now. "This is my boarding pass." She held it out again, this time pointing to the clearly marked first-class section. The agent barely glanced at it. "Let me check with my supervisor," she said curtly, motioning for Lisa to step aside. Lisa froze for a moment, caught off guard. Around her, the line continued to move. Other passengers, men in suits, women with designer bags, walked past her, their tickets scanned with no hesitation. They didn't even spare her a second glance. She took a deep breath and moved to the side, clutching her ticket tightly. A flurry of emotions swirled within her, confusion, frustration, and the bitter sting of humiliation. Lisa looked around. The whispers started almost immediately. She could feel the stares, hear the subtle murmurs from nearby passengers. Some looked curious, others amused. A few avoided her gaze altogether, as if her situation was too uncomfortable to acknowledge. She kept her posture straight, refusing to let her frustration show. She was no stranger to moments like this. Too often, her achievements had been questioned, her abilities underestimated, her presence scrutinized. She had learned to weather these moments with grace, but that didn't mean they didn't hurt. The gate agent returned, now accompanied by a supervisor, a younger man with a polite but indifferent expression. He glanced at Lisa, then at her ticket, before nodding. "It's fine," he said to the agent, barely looking at Lisa. "She's clear to board." The gate agent's expression didn't change. With a dismissive motion, she handed Lisa's ticket back. "You can go now," she said, her tone flat and devoid of apology. Lisa felt a wave of relief mixed with indignation. She wanted to say something, to call out the blatant disrespect she had just experienced. But she knew this wasn't the time. "Thank you," Lisa said simply, her voice calm but clipped. She took her ticket and walked toward the boarding bridge, her head held high. As she entered the plane, the stares didn't stop. The first-class cabin was a world of its own: wide seats, quiet luxury, and a palpable air of exclusivity. Lisa found her seat and placed her carry-on in the overhead compartment, trying to shake off the encounter at the gate. She sat down, the plush seat a stark contrast to the uncomfortable knot in her stomach. She adjusted the seat belt, her hands moving mechanically as her mind replayed the gate agent's words. "I think you're in the wrong line." The phrase echoed in her mind, each repetition stoking a quiet fire within her. It wasn't just about the ticket or the gate agent's assumption. It was about everything that moment represented: the barriers she had fought to overcome, the doubts she had silenced, and the respect she had earned. Lisa leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes for a moment. She wasn't going to let this ruin her day. But she couldn't ignore the truth: this wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of a larger story, one that she was determined to rewrite. As the plane began to taxi down the runway, Lisa opened her eyes and looked out the window. The clouds stretched across the sky, vast and limitless. A small, determined smile formed on her lips. This wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning. Lisa's mind raced as she sat in the plush seat. The soft leather seemed to mock her, offering comfort she couldn't quite accept. The encounter at the gate replayed in her mind like a broken record. She tried to focus on the luxury around her: the spacious seat, the personalized welcome message on the screen, the glass of champagne waiting on the armrest, but it wasn't working. She thought about the other passengers who had passed by without a second glance. Why was she the only one asked to step aside? Why had her place in this cabin been so hard for the agent to believe? She shook her head, trying to push the questions away, but they clung to her like an unwelcome shadow. Lisa glanced at the flight attendant moving through the cabin, handing out menus with a bright smile. When the attendant reached Lisa, the smile faltered for a moment before being quickly restored. "Welcome aboard, ma'am," the attendant said, handing her the menu. Lisa nodded politely. "Thank you," she replied, her tone neutral. The interaction was brief, but Lisa could see the same hesitation, the same unspoken doubt. It wasn't as overt as what she had experienced at the gate, but it was there. A flicker of surprise, a question that didn't need to be voiced. Lisa opened the menu and scanned the options, though her appetite was nowhere to be found. She folded the menu neatly and placed it on the tray table in front of her, letting her thoughts drift. This wasn't the first time she had encountered this kind of treatment. She thought back to her first big job interview, fresh out of college. She had walked into the room, resume in hand, only to be greeted with skeptical looks from the panel. They hadn't expected her: not her qualifications, not her confidence, not her determination. But Lisa had proved them wrong. She always did. That memory brought a small smile to her lips. If there was one thing Lisa had learned, it was how to turn doubt into fuel. Every skeptical glance, every dismissive comment, every moment of being underestimated, they had all driven her to achieve more, to push harder, to rise higher. The plane began to ascend, and Lisa leaned back in her seat, watching the ground disappear beneath her. She thought about the people she had met in her journey: the mentors who had believed in her, the colleagues who had stood by her, and the doubters who had unwittingly propelled her forward. But this time, something felt different. Lisa couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this incident wasn't just another moment to brush aside. It wasn't just about her. It was about a system, a mindset, a pattern that seemed to persist no matter how high she climbed. She pulled out her tablet and opened her notes app. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she began to type. Flight number. Gate agent description. Exact words spoken. She documented everything, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Lisa knew the importance of keeping records, of having facts to back up her experiences. It was a habit she had developed early in her career, a way to ensure that her voice couldn't be dismissed or silenced. The attendant returned, asking if she would like to place her order. Lisa politely declined, opting instead for water. As the hours passed, Lisa allowed herself to sink into the quiet hum of the cabin. She scrolled through her email, catching up on work. A few congratulatory messages from colleagues reminded her of the project she had just completed, a massive deal that had taken months to finalize. The thought brought a flicker of pride. She had earned this trip, this moment. But the pride was soon overshadowed by frustration. Why was it so hard for some people to see her as she truly was? The plane began to level out, and Lisa glanced at the window again. The view outside was stunning, clouds painted in hues of gold and pink as the sun set in the distance. She took a deep breath, letting the beauty of the moment ground her. As she watched the horizon, an idea began to take shape in her mind. It was just a seed, a flicker of inspiration, but it grew stronger with each passing moment. Lisa had spent years working within the system, navigating its challenges and proving herself time and again. But maybe it was time to do more than navigate. Maybe it was time to change the system itself. She didn't know what that would look like yet, but the thought filled her with a sense of purpose. She had the resources, the experience, and the determination to make a difference. As the flight attendants prepared the cabin for landing, Lisa closed her eyes and imagined a future where stories like hers didn't exist. A future where people were seen for their potential, not their appearance. A future where first class wasn't just a seat on a plane, but a mindset that everyone deserved. The plane touched down, and Lisa gathered her belongings, her resolve stronger than ever. This was just the beginning. Lisa's confident stride came to an abrupt halt. Her wide, hopeful smile slipped away, replaced by an expression of confusion. She stared at the gate agent, wondering if she had misheard. "Excuse me?" Lisa asked, her voice polite but carrying an undertone of disbelief. The gate agent crossed her arms, the badge on her chest catching the light as she straightened her posture. Her expression was stern, her tone sharper now. "I'm going to need to verify your ticket," she repeated, motioning with her hand as if Lisa was already blocking the way for others. "Please step aside." Lisa blinked, unsure how to respond. The ticket in her hand was clear as day, first class, printed boldly, with her name neatly displayed beneath it. She hadn't made a mistake, and she certainly wasn't in the wrong line. "This is my ticket," Lisa said, holding it out again, her voice calm but insistent. She pointed at the words first class printed on the pass, her index finger steady despite the unease rising within her. The agent's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting over Lisa as though searching for some flaw in her explanation. Without a word, she gestured toward a small counter at the side of the gate. "Wait over there," she said curtly. It wasn't the words alone that stung, it was the way they were said. Dismissive. Final. As if Lisa's presence in the first-class line was not only unexpected but unwelcome. Lisa hesitated for a moment, her pride urging her to stand her ground, but the murmurs from the growing line behind her pushed her forward. The other passengers watched with unabashed curiosity, their whispers soft but audible enough to reach her ears. "Is there a problem with her ticket?" one man asked, his tone tinged with suspicion. "She's probably in the wrong place," a woman muttered, loud enough for Lisa to hear. Lisa felt the weight of their stares pressing down on her, heavy and relentless. She stepped aside, clutching her boarding pass tightly as she moved toward the counter. Her chest tightened, the knot of humiliation growing with every passing second. She set her carry-on bag down beside her and crossed her arms, forcing herself to breathe deeply. The gate agent was now busy scanning the tickets of other passengers, each one waved through with a smile or a polite nod. No second glances. No questions. Lisa's gaze shifted to the passengers filing past her. businessmen in tailored suits, women with sleek designer luggage, families with well-dressed children.